Nat's True Crime Podcast, and I'm going to talk about Edmund Kemper III, born on December 18th, 1948, in Burbank, California, U.S. Edmund Kemper, a.k.a. the Co-Ed Killer, is a serial killer who murdered 8 people in 1972 to 1973, include his own mother. Ed Kemper also murdered his grandparents in 1964 when he was 15 years old. Ed Kemper is known for his height, stand at 6 feet 9 inches, and his high intellect, with Ed Kemper's IQ of 145. Ed Kemper victims. Edmund Kemper picked up friends Mary Ann Pesci and Anita Lachessa on May 7th, 1972. The pair were hiking to Stanford University. They were unaware that Kemper was driving them in the wrong direction and instead drove them to a secluded area. Edmund killed Anita first. She was stabbed and strangled to death, while Mary Ann was locked in the trunk. He also stabbed and strangled Mary Ann. Ed was pulled over by a police officer on the ride home for a broken taillight, but the officer did not inspect the vehicle. Ed Kemper took both corpses home to his apartment, where he took photographs and had sex with their corpse. He dismembered the bodies and dumped them parts in the Santa Cruz Mountain. Mary Ann's skull was discovered in August 1972. Those are the only remains that have been found. Igo Q had missed her bus to a dance class when she was picked up by Edmund Kemper on September 14th, 1972. Edmund drove her to a secluded area and pulled a gun on her. He choked her, sexually assaulted her, and killed her. After the murder of OKQ, he drove to a nearby bar, the jury room, where he would drink with local policemen before taking her corpse to his apartment. Back at his apartment, he had sex with her corpse and dismembered her. He disposed of her body parts in the mountains in California, but no remains have been recovered. Edmund Kemper picked up Cindy Shaw from Caprio College before driving her to a secluded spot on January 7th, 1973. He shot her before taking her body back to his mother's house. He placed the corpse in his wardrobe before placing her in the bathtub where he had sex with the corpse and dismembered her. Kemper threw most of her remains off a cliff, and those were discovered over the following weeks. He buried her head in the garden underneath his mother's window in a passive-aggressive display. Infuriated after an argument with his mother, Edmund Kemper picked up Rosalind Thorpe and Allison Lou on the February 5th, 1973. Edmund shot both of them in the car and beheaded them. He took both bodies into his mother's house where he had sex with the bodies and dismembered them. He dumped the remains at various places along Highway 1. Edmund Kemper murdered his mother. Ed Kemper murdered his mother. Cornell Stage, Strasbourg, on April 20th, 1973, after she had fell asleep. He bludgeoned her with a hammer and slit her throat. He then beheaded her, performed a sex act on her head, and used her head as a dartboard. He mutilated her head and placed her body in a cupboard. After killing his mother, Ed Kemper hit a local bar and invited his mother's best friend, Sarah, aka Sally Habit, over for a movie. When she arrived, Edmund strangled her, decapitated her, and spent the night with her dead body. Ed Kemper left the crime scene, leaving her body in the closet with a note for police, and stole her car, fled to Colorado. Edmund Kemper crimes are in more details. Edmund Kemper, The Life of the Co-ed Killer, ad. Confession. Ed Kemper left a note at the crime scene of his final murder confession to the crimes when there was nothing on the news about the killings. He telephoned the police and confessed to all of the murders he had committed. They initially didn't believe that we're drinking buddies. Big Ed was being serious, but he revealed details of the crimes that proved Kemper was a killer. Big Ed Kemper was questioned using a truth serum and confession to acts of cannibalism. He confessed to eating the flesh of victims and using human flesh in the casserole. He later recanted this confession. Edmund confessed that during the murders of Mary Ann, he had accidentally touched her breast, was embarrassed, and had apologized to her. Trial and sentencing. On May 7th, 1973, Edmund Kemper was indicted on 8 counts of first-degree murder. He defense proceeded with a plea of not guilty due to insane. Edmund attempted suicide twice before his trial. A number of psychological experts declared that Kemper was sane despite earlier diagnoses of paranoid schizophrenic and a personality disorder. Edmund took the stand during the trial and told the court that he wouldn't want the woman as his possessions. He claimed he was insane, as it was like another person took over when he killed. The jury were not convinced and found him guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Edmund Kemper requested the death penalty. However, the death penalty was suspended at the time after being abolished by the Supreme Court of California. Prison life and media. Edmund Kemper, the serial killer, was in prison imprisoned in the same prison block as Herbert Mellon and Charles Manson. Ed was said to have hated Herbert, who killed hitchhikers in the same area at the same time as Kemper. He was a model prisoner and was given prison jobs in administration and the library, where Ed Kemper narrated audio books. He was retired from the roles in 2015 after suffering a stroke in prison. From the prison, he gave a number of interviews for documentaries, included the killing of American and Murder, No Apparent Motive on the Ed Kemper murders. He told interviewers he was willing to take part to be able to stop others like him from committing murders. Ed Kemper was featured in Mindhunters, based on the real-life Edward Kemper interview with members of the FBI to help them understand the minds of serial killers. Where is Ed Kemper now? Ed Kemper today is alive, 70 years old, and remains in the California medical facility within the general population. The hitchhike killer first became eligible for parole in 1979. He has been declined parole on numerous occasions and has declined the opportunity for parole hearing on many occasions due to his belief that he will never be released. His most recent parole refusal was in 2017, and he is due for his next hearing in 2024. Early life of Edmund Kemper. During his childhood, Edward displayed alarming behavior. He stalked his teacher and was cruel to animals, and he killed two of his family's pet cats. One cat he buried alive, and the other he butchered with a machete. Edmund's mother was a cruel, abusive alcoholic who ridiculed him and forced him to sleep in the basement, fearful he would molest his sisters. After his father left the family, he ran away to join him, but his father had started a new family, and sent him to live with his grandparents. Edmund was just 15 when he murdered his grandparents, Maud and Edmund Kemper, by shooting them both with a rifle. He was committed to a state hospital rather than a juvenile facility after he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenic. Kemper was released from psychiatric care after just 5 years, and on his 21st birthday, at the time of his release, he was deemed no longer be a threat to others. He worked a number of jobs before he worked for the highway department and was rejected in his application to be a state trooper because of his height. Thanks for watching my podcast. Please like, subscribe, and comment.